Have you ever watched a movie or a TV show and thought an actor sounded a certain way, then watched an interview of them and they sounded completely different? Maybe you thought an actor was American, but then they ended up being British? Today we'll be talking about actress Julia Garner in two different roles where she has shown exceptional talent in her adoption of accents. The first role is in the Netflix series Ozark, and the second is in a show called Inventing Anna. We will go into depth on her accent in these two characters, but first let's discuss how actors learn accents for their roles in the first place. A particularly insightful piece of literature written by Faraday, who is an accent and dialect coach, reflected on her experience working on the production called The Beautiful Game. Faraday reflected on her field notes from working on this production and pointed out a few key factors in accent acquisition that include but are not limited to online tools like videos or apps, becoming familiar with the IPA, listening and interacting with native speakers of an accent, and using the whole body and mind approach. This last point describes the importance of modifying one's articulators like the jaw, tongue, and lips. Learning an accent, she says, is truly a whole body process that involves the lungs, posture, and body gestures.
So how did Julia Garner acquire the accents for her roles? For both roles, she used a holistic approach. A holistic approach to accent coaching entails the actor focusing less on specific speech sounds and instead listening to a native speaker of an accent in an attempt to mimic both their speech as well as their mannerisms. In Ozark, Julia Garner worked with a dialect coach for a month and visited the Ozarks prior to filming. In Inventing Anna, since her role is based off of a real character, she had access to private interviews of Anna Sorokin's speech and interacted with the real Anna Sorokin directly.
Let's talk about Julia Garner's role in Ozark. The show takes place in the Ozarks, hence the title of the series, which is in the state of Missouri. These states here make up the Midwestern part of the United States and are described as having a Midwestern accent. Of course, the geographic area is quite large, so there are differences in speech across the Midwest, but the features that will be discussed can be generalized across the area. Here's some history of the Ozarks for you to better understand the accent. Starting in the 1830s, the people of the Appalachian Mountains moved to the Ozarks. They moved here because it was similar in terrain and they could continue practices like farming. The people of the Appalachia had heavy Scotch-Irish influences because that's where they originally descended from, which then continued on in the Ozarks. The geographic and cultural isolation of the Appalachia, and then later the Ozarks, has resulted in quite a distinct culture and, most importantly, distinct speech features. By being isolated areas both geographically and by choice of the people, the dialect has been able to be resistant to language change. Areas like the Appalachia are of interest to linguists because of the effect of isolation on speech. Taking a word with a diphthong and turning it into a monophthong is a very common feature in Midwestern English. The opposite is also done where a short monophthong vowel becomes a diphthong or adds an extra schwa sound. They also tend to elongate stressed syllables more than we do in a typical English accent. The words night and die are typically said using diphthongs, but here Julia Garner turns them into a monophthong to sound more like nat and da. Let's listen to the clip.
I know I kissed you last night, but I thought I was gonna fucking die.
In this clip, you can again hear her shorten a typical diphthong word time to sound more like tam. The words mouth and out have that drawl feel by having an extra schwa, and you can also hear her delete the final consonant in out.
In the meantime, shut your fuck nugget mouth and get the hell out.
Listen to this clip and see how the typical monophthong word dead becomes almost like a diphthong.
I don't feel comfortable you going through the safe like that.
Well, if I cared any less, I'd be dead.
So how does her accent contribute to her character and the show? First, let's talk about what linguists call speech divergence, the act of differentiating oneself from others based on speech. I think the show does a very good job of almost overemphasizing the Ozark accent in order to show who is native to the area. According to studies on Appalachian speech, the process of monophthongization of diphthongs is more prevalent in speakers who feel more rooted to the area, so they feel the need to index their cultural and regional identity. This is important in the show because the main character, which is pictured here as the Bird family, they act as newcomers to the area and they have a more standard American English accent. So the contrast between their standard accent versus the Ozark accent establishes sort of an us and them dynamic, which is important to the storyline. The use of accents in the show can also reveal how speech indexicality is used in regards to accent. Speech indexicality refers to variation in speech that can often signify characteristics like gender, social class, or ethnicity. Julia Garner's character is a poor girl living in a trailer with little education, so her more redneck accent reveals her social status. Let's look at her next and very different character in Inventing Anna.
Julia Garner's performance in the show Inventing Anna is yet another display of her talent in adopting accents, as unconventional as they may be. The story of Inventing Anna is based on the true story of Anna Delvey, a con artist in New York who posed as a German heiress in order to gain connections and access to the upper New York social and art scene. While adopting an accent is no new task for the actress, the unique accent of Anna Delvey was stated by Garner herself as likely the hardest accent she will ever do. Before analyzing Julia Garner's accent performance of Anna Delvey, let us discuss the character herself and why her accent is so different from others. Anna Delvey, whose real name is Anna Sorokin, was born on January 23, 1991, in Domodedovo, a small town outside of Moscow, Russia. Sorokin lived in Russia until she was 16, when her family moved to Germany. She attended secondary school in Germany until she graduated in 2011. She then briefly attended an art school in London before dropping out and returning to Germany. Through various employment opportunities in the fashion industry, Anna Sorokin eventually ended up in New York in 2013, where she adopted the surname Delvey and began her fraudulent schemes. Anna Delvey's distinctive yet unrecognizable accent comes from her diverse linguistic experience within various cultures, as well as her linguistic needs. She grew up in Russia, but also attended school in Germany for a period of time. However, living in America since 2013, she has also heavily adopted the American accent, as well as the stylistic features. Throughout her time in America, her speech also needed to reflect that of a German heiress and wealthy socialite. The combination of these various aspects results in a unique, one-of-a-kind accent unfamiliar to most people.
Anna Delvey.
I mean, who wouldn't want to play someone like Anna Delvey, you know?
In this first clip, Julia Garner says an impromptu phrase in the accent of Anna Delvey. In her pronunciation of the word want, she replaces the voiced labial velar approximant w with the voiced labial dental fricative v to sound more like vant. This change is a characteristic of Russian phonology, as the voiced labial velar approximant w is not used in Russian language. In this next short clip, Julia Garner says the word yeah with a change in the vowel. As opposed to the standard American English yeah, which uses the near low front vowel eh, she pronounces the word with the low front vowel to sound like ja, which resembles a German English accent.
Yeah. 45,000 square feet, 6 floors.
Knows the building better than I do.
Another German phonetic characteristic of her accent is her use of final obstruent devoicing, or FOD, in certain words. FOD refers to the devoicing of an obstruent such as a plosive or fricative when it is at the end of a word. This clip of Garner saying floors is an example of FOD, where instead of pronouncing the final obstruent as a voiced alveolar fricative z, like floors in American English, she devoices it and instead uses the voiceless alveolar fricative s to say floors.
He wouldn't have his hand on my ass if I were a man, but because I'm a woman, they all think they can give you a crappy deal and get a blowjob on the side.
This final clip displays the American aspect of her speech. Although her character's pronunciation does not always follow the typical American English pronunciations, the fluency of her speech delivery in aspects such as tone, rhythm, and syllabic timings often resemble that of a fluent American English speaker.